What's going on, traders? Let's get straight into it. So, a lot has happened today, and I mean, it was an absolute crazy day. But hear me out. Hear me out. It's going to sound crazy. You're going to say I'm biased. You're probably going to call me a perma bull. But when we're looking at the overall market, or at least the tech side and the SPY, we're still above key levels. We're still above key levels. Hear me out. Hear me out before you click off the video or whatever you want to do. Okay, rage in the comments, whatever the case may be, right? We're looking at the daily time frame on the SPY. What do we see? We've been talking about this for quite some time, so you guys know I'm not like coping. I'm not making anything. We've had this in almost every single video, right? We have an ascending triangle, right? We have a low here, a higher low here, and then we have a flat top. We broke out, thus confirming this is ascending triangle. And look where we are on the daily time frame. We're still above key levels on the SPY. We're still above this ascending triangle on the SPY. We're above that 565 level. And I believe I talked about this in the last video, but if I didn't, again, 565 is our key zone here. We're still above it. We're still above the ascending triangle. We still look absolutely fine. Now, I'm not going to act like today was crazy. I'm not going to act like we don't have bad news or, uncertain news such as like Iran, port strike, all that stuff. We're not going to act like that doesn't exist. But what I will say is if we're looking purely at TA, everything still looks bullish. Okay, everything still looks bullish. Okay, so we're looking at the daily time frame. We're still above the ascending triangle. We're still above the 565 level on the SPY. There is a possibility that we can bounce from that 565 level sometime tomorrow. Tomorrow we do have non-farm payrolls that could change a lot of things or pretty much cause a pivot across the market. We'll have to see, but maybe you still don't believe me. Maybe you're not convinced. Let's look at the triple Qs. Same thing with the triple Qs. Look where we are on the triple Qs. We're looking at the daily time frame. Once again, look where we are. Again, we're looking at an ascending triangle. Now, it's not the cleanest of patterns, but we have a low here, higher low here, and then we have a flat top here. Look where we are. We broke out, and then we started to break down, and now we have closed above the supply and demand zone at around 480, 479 range. Still looking fine, guys. Still looking okay, right? Maybe you still don't believe me. Let's look at the NQ. NQ, same exact thing. I mean, it's essentially the same thing as the triple Qs, right? We broke out, we broke back down, we closed above the supply and demand zone. Well, we didn't close yet. The daily is still going on the NQ, but you guys get the idea. We're still above the supply and demand zone. Not only are we still above the supply and demand zone, I mean, you can see it here, just in case you're thinking I'm making it up. We have a low here, higher low here, and then we have this neckline here at around the 19,900 range. We're still above this neckline. We are still looking okay. Now, obviously, things can change overnight, but for now, there's no reason to panic if you are bullish, right? And so we go to the weekly time frame. We zoom out, and what do we see? That trend line that we just saw on the daily time frame that we're pretty much sitting right above. We bounced here, we bounced here, we broke down, broke back up, we formed somewhat of a double bottom. We are currently breaking the neckline, and look what's happening right now. Look what's happening. I mean, maybe you guys don't see the double bottom. Let me make sure you guys see it, okay? Bottom, right? Bottom, okay? We broke the neckline above 19,900, and what are we doing right now? We're retesting the neckline. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying we're going to, go crazy to the upside, but these are things we need to keep in mind and pay attention to right now. All right. So we go back to the daily time frame, and if we're considering that double bottom that we just saw, that we just went over, look where we are. All we're doing is retesting not only the neckline right now, but we are retesting the trend line that I just showed you guys on the weekly time frame. I don't know. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's look at the ES. Now, ES has a little more space to the downside. I will say that much, right? But again, supply and demand zone right here. We are on the daily time frame, by the way. We got a little more room to the downside. Maybe we hit, 5, 7, 20. I believe I talked about this level before, but if I didn't, 5,720 is the possible pivot level that we could be looking at before we bounce higher. Okay. Now there is a gap to the downside here. Maybe we head towards that, but it's really hard to say right now, considering where we are. We're still above the supply and demand zone. We broke above it. We never came back to retest the supply and demand zone, by the way. So again, Are we simply looking at a retest to the downside? Okay, we get non-farm payrolls. Maybe it causes a shift in the market. Who knows? But right now, things still look fine. But maybe this isn't enough. Okay, maybe you need a little more. Okay, we look at Bitcoin. Now, if we're considering Bitcoin a leading indicator, right? If we are, I personally think Bitcoin is a leading indicator now. I used to not think that, but since it has an ETF, it has a leg in the market, it has stocks in the market, it's safe to say that this has some form of an indication on what the market is going or where the market is going to go, right? But look what happened here. We broke above. We broke out of this level. Remember this rising three method that we talked about before it broke out. It broke out, and look what we're doing. Simply looks like we're going to retest the top of this pattern here at around possibly 58K, and then we possibly head higher from there. Okay, things look fine, but maybe Bitcoin isn't enough. Let's look at coin. Look what coin is doing right now. We look at the daily time frame on coin. Okay, look where coin is. We rejected here, we rejected here, we consolidated here above this level. So we broke down, we broke back up, we consolidated here, and look what we're doing again. Maybe you guys can't see this wick, but we look at this daily candle right now, we're rejecting. Okay, we rejected it so far. We can consider this somewhat of a hammer pattern. It's up to you. I don't really think this is a hammer pattern, but if it looks like the pattern, assume that it is until proven otherwise. Coin could bounce from here. Okay, Bitcoin and coin could bounce from this area right here. All right, so something else to keep in mind. Let's look at the semiconductor ETFs. Let's look at SMH. Same thing. The difference here is this is a weekly supply and demand zone for SMH. A weekly supply and demand zone. Okay, we go to the weekly time frame, and you guys see it here. Rejected here. It's just a whole bunch of bullish wicks in this area. Whole bunch. You got one here, bullish wick here, bullish wick here, huge bullish wick here, and then you're rejected right here. I mean, still looking fine, right? We're still above 238 on SMH. We're pretty close. We're cutting it close. But if we stay above 238, I would say 237 to really be safe, we're fine. Okay. We are absolutely fine. Okay. Now, if we do just so happen to see more downside, and we just so happen to break below this level, then chances are we're heading towards this trend or we're heading towards this gap right here at around the 233, 235 level. Okay. Somewhere around there. But for now, it's safe to say that there is potential for a bounce here. Okay, maybe that's not enough. Let's look at SOXX. Look what SOXX is doing. I mean, this is beautiful, right? It's it's pretty much retesting this trend line right here. You have a low here, higher low here, and if anything, and I didn't mention this on the other ones, but if anything, could we be looking at another higher low that's about to form right here? I mean, look where we are. We hit this trend. If we bounce from here, we're creating another higher low. We have a high here, another higher high right here. If we bounce from here, right? Huge if, by the way, if we bounce from here, we create a higher low, and then we can possibly create another higher high from here. Okay, something to think about. All right, maybe we can, let's look at some stocks. Okay, let's look at Google. Okay, Google. Now, Google has a habit of not following the market. We can acknowledge that, right? Sometimes it does its own thing. Sometimes it absolutely follows the market. But if we're looking at Google, look what happened here. I mean, this is a clean bounce, okay? Very clean bounce. I mean, you can consider this somewhat of a doji, maybe some indecision, but if Google can get above 167.5, this thing is going to 169.5, 170 range, somewhere around there. I have a target of 173. I think this thing is going to absolutely go crazy to the upside if it just so happens to break above 167.5. But Google looks great as long as Google stays above 164. Bullish on it. Okay, you have a somewhat of a inverse head and shoulders pattern here. It's not the cleanest, but you have let's actually map it out for you. You have a head here, you have a shoulder here, and then you have another shoulder here. You broke the neckline. You broke the neckline. Not only did you break the neckline, you retested the neckline, and you pretty much rejected it. And then you have somewhat of a doji pattern. Maybe there's some indecision there. We'll see. But regardless, Google looks great to the upside. Amazon. We look at Amazon. What did Amazon do? And I don't know where my levels are for here, but regardless, Amazon. It's right about there. Okay. It's not perfect, but Amazon, right at a daily supply and demand zone. You bounced here, you bounced here, you pretty much consolidated in this area within the supply and demand zone. Your neckline is somewhat within this area. Again, it's not perfect, but you guys get the idea because I'm rushing through it, right? But regardless, Amazon above 184, completely fine. Above 182, still fine. Amazon is still bullish. It can bounce from here. I mean, again, could we be looking at another higher low across the market? Low here, higher low here. If we bounce here, that's another higher low. You have a high here, a higher high right here. And then you possibly, let's map it out, okay? And if you bounce from here, boom, that's your higher low. And then potentially if you go higher than about 195, you're looking at a higher high. I don't know. Do the math here, guys. Things are still looking okay. We're still above these key levels, all right? I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not trying to cope or anything. It's no reason to panic until we start breaking below these key levels. Once we start breaking below these key levels, I will be the first to put out a bearish video and out and start running. Okay, let you guys know to start running. Okay, but for now, things look fine. Okay, things still look okay. I mean, we can look at another stock. Let's look at Nvidia. And so Nvidia, inverse head and shoulders pattern, right? Now, where is all my drawings? Where did they all go? Okay, so we still have the symmetrical triangle. I mean, that's fine. It's still there, right? But Nvidia. Now, the only concern about Nvidia is that it gave up 117. Okay, it gave up 117. We're not going to deny that. Next key level is 115, 114.8, point 9, somewhere around that range. But regardless, Nvidia still looks absolutely fine. We still have this cup and handle pattern. You can call it an inverse head and shoulders pattern, whichever one, doesn't really matter. I'm going to assume that this is a cup and handle pattern, but you have your cup here, you have your handle here, right? Will look a lot better on a smaller time frame, but you have your handle here. You go down to the 4 hour time frame. Nvidia looks fine. All it's doing is possibly retesting the handle of this cup and handle pattern. We'll see. But regardless, Nvidia still looks fine. Okay. Now, again, it's below 117. So I wouldn't get too bullish on it or anything like that. It may have some more downside in the morning. Overall, I think the market may have a little more downside in the morning. We'll see, okay? Because again, we're looking at the SPY, we're talking about the SPY, we're talking about that 565 level. We may see that level retested before we potentially go higher. That is on the table. But for now, when we're looking across the market, everything still looks good, okay? I'm sorry. Everything still looks bullish from what I can see. We look at Tesla. All right, Tesla has delivery numbers. I don't know if it's today, tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know. But regardless, Tesla looks fine. Okay. Tesla looks bullish. I still think this thing is going to see minimum 270. We could see 300 sometime this year. Let's keep going. And so, one thing I want to look at here is the VIX. And this is why I say we could potentially see more downside. Just a little bit more. Okay. We look at the VIX. All right. So we look at the VIX. VIX is currently at 19. I think the VIX, if it hits 23, somewhere around 23, I think we're going to see some type of rejection from there. Okay. So the VIX does have a little more upside. I'm not going to act like that, but that can happen in one swift move. We know how the VIX moves. We know that VIX is very volatile. It can make a quick move fast. All right. So we look at a move towards 123, 122.5. We're not too far off from there. And then we reject from there. Okay. Very possible. Now, is it possible for the VIX to break higher? Absolutely. I mean, we still have a bunch of news and lingering in the air. But right now, if I'm focused on the TA and I'm focused at looking at the market across the board, things still look okay. And if you're wondering where this trend comes from, it's from this rejection here, rejection here, rejection here, somewhat of rejection here. And then as you go further down, you just see that the rejection gets more and more common. Okay, but regardless, the VIX looks like it's going to top soon. Okay, it absolutely looks like that. So we'll see. Maybe the VIX hits 23. Maybe it immediately rejects from here. But regardless, things look fine. Okay, so hopefully I got somewhat of a point across. You can feel free to disagree. I'm all for it. That's fine. But right now, I'm not super bullish. I will say that much. But what I will say is that there is potential for a bounce sometime this week. Okay, there is potential. If we're looking at the NQ and we're looking at the chart on the NQ, again, above this daily supply demand zone, right at this neckline for the double bottom here on the weekly time frame. If we look at the ES, if ES can just somehow reclaim 5780, absolutely bullish. But if we look at the ES, we have a little more room to the downside, sure, but we can potentially bounce from there, right? Look at the triple Qs, we're looking at the same thing. Look where we are. We're right at this daily supply and demand zone. We look at the SPY, we see the same thing. Right, well, not right there, but we're getting pretty close to that 565 level. We possibly retest that level, maybe have one more bearish day, maybe the market plays games, is completely uncertain, whatever the case may be, and then we bounce higher. Okay, simple as that. If we give up 565, then we're heading towards 560. I will say that much. Okay, but regardless, things look fine. If we just so happen to bounce, once again, I want to make this clear, okay, because I didn't talk about this on the spot. If we bounce, right? If we go down a little further, right? 565, we'll even say 560, just to entertain it, right? We're still making a lower high. Low here, higher low here. I said lower high, higher low. Okay, higher low. You said you have a low here, higher low here, and then you will have another higher low here, and then potentially make a higher high. Still looks fine. Okay, we're, all it looks like we're doing is retesting a lot of patterns and retesting a lot of levels across the board on the in the market. In this case, we're just simply retesting the top of this ascending triangle. Now, if we break below this ascending triangle, then that's extremely bad. And I would say if we break below 556, that's very, very bad. But we're not going to talk about that until we get there, or if we get there. Okay, so again, point here is that everything still looks bullish overall. All right. Short term, could we see a little more downside? Absolutely. But in the long run, right now, it looks like we could potentially see a bounce soon. Be cautious as always. Be smart, be cautious, be disciplined, don't panic too much. There's going to be a lot of fear mongering, guys. I know it. It's going to be a lot of fear mongering. There's already a lot of fear mongering. Twitter is going insane. That's how they trap you. That's how they get your money. That's how they liquidate retail traders, by creating a lot of fear. So we'll see. But regardless, that's all I have, guys. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you disagree, maybe you know something I don't. By all means, comment your thoughts below. Be respectful, please. And so that's all I have. Until the next video, traders, have a good one.